Good morning. My name is Erin Miller. I would like to introduce Mr. Jason Schover, Big Spring High School principal.
Good morning. I'd like to begin by extending a good morning to our honored guests, their spouses, on behalf of Big Spring School District and the greater Big Spring community. My name is Jason Schover. I'm the principal here at Big Spring High School. I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the student body to open this special event. Today, we pause to remember and pay our respect to veterans, both past and present, who have ensured that this government, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. Veterans Day reminds us that the men and women who served and are currently serving secured the freedoms that we enjoy today. Their sacrifices give us the opportunity to enjoy liberty, which stands as a beacon of light to other nations. I'd like to, at this time, to introduce Tempest Leo Club Ambassador and President, Erin Miller, to lead everyone in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Big Spring High School Cantabile will now sing our national anthem by Francis Scott Key. Our Big Spring Concert Band will now play the Armed Forces Salute. We ask that all service members in the audience who have served in the various branches of our military stand and be recognized for their service when their anthem is played. At this time, we ask that the Honor Guard come forward and retire Old Glory and raise a new flag for the coming school year. On behalf of the Big Spring High School student body, we wish to present Old Glory to our special guest veteran, David Eaglehawk, this year's oldest veteran in attendance. He proudly served our nation as a member of the United States Army for 3 years from 1962 to 1965. Tempest Club will now do the exchanging of the wreath ceremony. Presentation bouquets are from the class of 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025.
Good morning, my name is Ava Wilson and I am the Tempest Leo Club Vice President. I have the very solemn duty of calling the last roll call for our dearly departed local veterans from the past year. Raymond Slavin, Army. Benita Kuntz, Army. John Chrislieb, Army. Dennis Hockenberry, Army. And James Arnold, Army.
It is my pleasure to introduce this year's guest of honor, retired U.S. Army Brigadier General Wilbur Wolf III.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right in the back, Randy? I think I got a little something in my eye. It may take me a moment to clear up after those taps. So it's a little hard for me to believe that it's been about 10 years since I've had the honor of being here to speak at a Veterans Day ceremony. I think it was about halfway into the 10-year of when Big Spring was actually doing this. I think as Mr. Anderson and I were talking, it's been almost 20 years that Big Spring has been gathering in the vicinity of this courtyard and conducting this honor, and wish to extend my thanks to the superintendent, to the principal, to the Tempest Club, to all those who are putting this together every year. Certainly I'd say a few things have changed in those 10 years, but certainly as time continues to march on. Interesting for me to reflect that some of the students who were here 10 years ago, standing around the courtyard as you are in the Cantabile, in Tempest Club, some of those students have now joined the ranks of the veterans that we honor today. And some of the veterans who were present then and who we honor today have now gone on before us to Valhalla. One thing has certainly stayed constant, I'm sure, the overwhelming love and respect from the Big Spring family, from our local community, and from those who have sacrificed and suffered and served. And certainly how fitting that we're gathered here, not only in the shadow of our stars and stripes, but also overlooking the memorial for one of our most honored own, Sergeant First Class Randall Sugar, Medal of Honor recipient. And I would say that there may be other places in this great big United States of America that honor their veterans better, but I have yet to find that place. As I reflected about when I spoke here in 2012, still today, we here in our republic are struggling to be fully united. In the past decade, many things have changed, but we're still the United States of America, and I think it's about time for we, the people, to start acting like it. The concept of unity and selfless service are intended to be my points of emphasis today. So with that short preamble out of the way, it is my honor to be with you here today, shortly before the 11th hour, on the 11th day of the 11th month of the 103rd year of celebration of Veterans Day, or as it was originally known, Armistice Day. That day commemorating the ending of World War I, or what was intended to be at that time the war to end all wars. And as I was thinking about my remarks for this morning, I started to reflect a bit on this day 103 years ago, the year 1918. In Europe, the war had raged for several years. The United States has just entered the war a year prior, a war that would result in 41 million casualties, 18 million dead, 21 million wounded. For our U.S. troops, we would suffer 116,000 dead, 204,000 physically wounded, and likely hundreds of thousands more with hidden wounds. Our young men and a few women were ordered to deploy to a foreign land and to fight a foreign enemy, an enemy not of their choosing, but an enemy of freedom and an enemy of justice, an enemy chosen for them by our elected leaders. Those young troops on a day like today, mainly in France, dug in, hunkered down in trenches and foxholes within sight and hearing of their enemy, awaiting the next artillery barrage, the next fog of mustard gas, the next burst of machine gun fire, the next bayonet assault, the seemingly endless nights filled with the whimpers and cries from both friend and enemy of those who would not see the next sunrise. On the morning of the 11th of November in 1918, our own 28th Infantry Division of here in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard was in the Thiaucourt sector of France, preparing to resume offensives targeting Metz. The morning was cool and foggy. The quote from their history book reflects, "The troops of the Keystone Division realistically welcomed the armistice. There were few who regretted that the war had ended." And frankly, considering the context of our modern warfare of the last 30 years, the magnitude of the suffering and loss is almost inconceivable to me. I feel so very fortunate to live in a land and in a time when I have little worries of enduring those same horrors. I feel so very fortunate that they were willing and able to serve and sacrifice so that you and I can stand here today. 32 years ago, we celebrated Veterans Day in Berlin. Frankly, I don't really remember doing a Veterans Day celebration because in the 48 hours prior, our world had been turned upside down. On the evening of the 9th of November, 1989, after about 28 years in place, the Berlin Wall fell. The Cold War was symbolically over. Democracy had prevailed over socialism and communism. Freedom and liberty had once again overcome oppression. The Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact were done. The former Soviet states were beginning on the long journey out of the depths of decades of depression, repression, and poverty. We and they knew that the road ahead would be long and challenging, but freedom was theirs. On the morning of the 10th of November, 1989, I had the honor to pilot my UV-20 Pilatus Porter across the wall into, I think, be officially the first Allied flight over newly free East Berlin and East Germany. It was certainly a proud moment for sure, and it was for me greatly symbolic knowing that from 1961 to 1964, my dad had been flying his L-19 Bird Dog in Germany as the 3rd Armored Cav Regiment and many other U.S. forces stood to counter the Soviets during the building of the Berlin Wall and the inter-German border. And although there were certainly many others who sacrificed much that led to the fall of the wall and the defeat of communism rested squarely on the shoulders of the American service members who served and sacrificed, who gave blood, sweat, and tear, and many who gave the last full measure of devotion to their life to the cause of freedom. Many of those Cold War warriors served during periods between wars and often don't get much recognition or honor. But in many places around the world, sometimes quiet and hidden from public view, our Cold War warriors slowly eroded the grip of communism. They slowly chipped away at the wall until it finally fell. For those many Cold War warriors who may have never been fully recognized, I thank and salute you. A few moments ago, I used the phrase "for the cause of freedom." For me, it evokes powerful emotion, as I believe that it also does for many of you. And I think that it has also been one thing that has unified us in trying times in the past. When we won the Cold War, it felt like we were fully united. As I stand here today, I wonder, what will it take for us to be fully united again? The United States of America. I pause for a moment and think about what those words mean to me, and I hope you pause for a moment to think what they mean to you. E pluribus unum, from many, one. United, to be inseparable, to be collectively focused on a common purpose, to be shoulder to shoulder on this journey in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. In my not too humble opinion, there's no better example of unity and unified purpose than the United States military and the soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and I guess at some point I have to figure out how to work into this, the Space Force. In the military, the things that are most important are the mission and the well-being of those serving with you. Things that typically divide us in the civilian world, Republican versus Democrat, liberal or conservative, color of skin, race, country of origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, all of those things still exist in the military, but they are put to the side so that we can be unified in purpose. Truly in the military, we know better than most that united we stand, but divided we would fall. Maybe we in the civilian domain can take some lessons from our veterans and our service members. So what I think is that one way we can honor those who have served and those who are serving now is to follow the advice once given by John Fitzgerald Kennedy on a Veterans Day occasion like today. As we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. So this is what we can do but to best honor those who have served and pledged their life to the defense of their Constitution, our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Be the people, be the community, be the Commonwealth, and be the Republic worthy of their service and sacrifice. And as much as wars throughout our history have divided us, it is in many cases also served to unite us. Regardless of the cause, we have come to reflect on the U.S. warrior as being proud and honorable, and have generally regarded military service as a mark or confirmation of citizenship and commitment to the greater good of the whole, and the continuation of this great experiment that we know as the United States of America. A bit more than 150 years ago, not far from here on the hallowed grounds of Gettysburg, on the then silent battlefields, President Lincoln uttered his time-revered address intent on beginning the healing in a fractured nation. Today we gather here at a time where there is again great division in our country. A nation passionately and nearly equally divided along ideological lines. A nation where not all are treated equally. A nation where not everyone has equal opportunity. Now, I'm not directly comparing the time of the Civil War with today, but I am acknowledging the somewhat significant difference of voted and voiced opinion about the right course of action for the future of our nation. I hope and pray that those voices and passions are first and foremost those of Americans, and then distant secondly, speaking as Republicans and Democrats. I hope and pray that there is more that unites us than there is that divides us. I am many things, and I have my own strong opinions about many key issues of the day and about the best way ahead for this country, but I am first and foremost always a proud American. This country is not perfect, but it is my country. These stars and stripes, they are and always will be my flag. I am proudly Citizen Wolf. A few years ago, during a Veterans Day ceremony near Philadelphia, an older veteran speaker used a quote attributed to George Washington. I'd like to use that to set the stage for my continued remarks. The willingness with which our young people are likely to serve in any war, no matter how justified, shall be directly proportional as to how they perceive the veterans of earlier wars were treated and appreciated by their nation. These words can certainly be never more true than today in the Great Republic, more than 40 years after the end of the draft in the United States, and since which time we have been an all-volunteer armed services. These words to me, if for no other reason, mean that this is why we must remember, why we must never forget, why we must respect and appreciate the service of our veterans, because we never know when and where the next war may be. Although for a generation or two we have believed it inconceivable to be here in our homeland, I for one want no question about the willingness of our young men and women to fight and defend, especially here in the land between the shining seas. Some veterans in particular, those who served in the Vietnam War, know all too well that many in our country, many of our leaders, many of our fellow citizens failed in this most solemn obligation to respect and honor your service. Specifically to our Vietnam veterans, just in case you didn't hear it when you got back, you have not heard it recently, or you have not heard it loudly and clearly enough, I say to you, welcome home and thank you for your service. I am overwhelmingly pleased that the veterans of our new generation have been actively supported and celebrated much more like the World War II veterans who are most honorably known as the greatest generation. And it is my hope that today and forevermore we should always remember and never forget the honorable service of all generations of veterans, and that today and on every tomorrow we repay to you by our words and our deeds some of that which you have earned by your service to this nation. The sacrifice of the very few for the benefit of the many. At no point in our history has freedom for so many been protected by so few. Less than 1% of our population is currently engaged in the defense of our nation as members of our armed forces. Less than 10% of our population has ever worn a uniform. The good news is we continue to have many young men and women wanting to join the ranks and serve. In stark contrast to our greatest generation, when almost 10% of our population was in uniform and our whole nation was engaged in the war effort, today's service members, soldiers, Marines, sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and their families are still, to a very great extent, carrying the load alone. But I am also very pleased that here at Big Spring, you continue to take care of all of our veterans and all of our service members, not only on Veterans Day, but throughout the year. Although our armed services have been engaged in war since soon after 9/11, almost 20 years of persistent conflict and the longest period of continuous war in the history of our nation, a service member enlisting or commissioning in 2001 has known nothing but war, many deploying to combat multiple times, and during those long years, the vast majority of our population and of our nation have not been at war. For the most part, our veterans come back home to cities, towns, rural areas all around the country, to places like here in South Central Pennsylvania where, aside from the units, family members, and veterans groups, there's often little knowledge of the war and even less sacrifice made by the population at large. So this is why we gather here today, to honor and remember, to reflect on service and sacrifice, and to understand the things that bind us together, the generations of veterans. So we serve for this, and many died for this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. These words from our Declaration of Independence adopted by Congress July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia. We serve for this. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. These words you know as the preamble to the Constitution adopted on the 17th of September, 1787, the oldest national constitution in continuous use in the world. We serve for this. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. And a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. These words are, of course, from the first two amendments of our Constitution, better known as the Bill of Rights. We serve for this. For every mother and father, every son and daughter, every brother and sister who have from all walks of life come, who have assembled to the sound of the bugle and the shadow of the stars and stripes, and who have marched forth to distant lands and joined in battle with the enemies of our nation. They have waved a tearful goodbye to their family and friends. They have ventured forth to a foreign land, many to never return, to fight not a war of their choosing, but a war that's been chosen for them by those we have elected and those who we have entrusted to lead this nation. On a more personal note, I serve because I believe in my country and in her future and in my fellow citizens. I happen to believe that the United States of America is exceptional. I serve because I refuse to see the freedoms earned for all of us by the millions of veterans who have come before me to have been in vain. I serve because I have seen firsthand what life is like elsewhere in the world when there is a loss of freedom, where there is oppression, where there is a lack of respect for human rights, where tyranny rules the masses, and when government ceases to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. I serve because I believe in the fundamental goodness of the United States and our citizens, and the incredible forethought of our founding fathers to create the charter documents of our freedom. I serve so that my wife and our family can continue to be free and to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So on this day, we pause for a pittance of time in commemoration of the service of our veterans. You, our veterans, your sacrifice, your personal sacrifice, the sacrifice of your family, the sacrifice of our community, your sacrifice to this republic and to all freedom-loving men and women around the world. And I say a pittance because it's just that, just a short time, just a small sacrifice, just a meager recognition, barely worthy of all that you have done for your nation. Yet in this pittance of time, know that in every minute of every hour of every day, your nation is to you eternally grateful. So on this day of remembrance, I ask that you let me share with you the words that I'm both most proud and most sad to have said as an American soldier. On behalf of a grateful nation. In sadness, those words of final honors that I have uttered on bended knee, to the sound of taps piercing crack of rifle volley, and through the haze of tears, to mothers, fathers, wives, sons, and daughters of my soldiers, my friends, and my family who have fought and died. Yet today, with overwhelming pride, I'm exceptionally proud to say to you all, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service and sacrifice. It is for you, our veterans, that we say, we live in the land of the free because of the brave. Again, my friends, it's been my honor to be with you here today. It is my honor to have served this nation in the footsteps of our older veterans and to serve beside our current generation of veterans. It is also my honor to ask of you your thoughts and prayers for those service members of this nation who are currently deployed and defending the nation abroad. I ask that they may be supported now and honored in the future as we honor you and them here today. And finally, I ask your thoughts and prayers for those who are elected and appointed to lead our Commonwealth and our nation. May they have the wisdom, strength, and courage to lead us all, to bring us together, to enable for all of us the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And I'll close with one final reason that I have served, and I believe we all serve. We, the service members of the United States of America, serve to protect and defend this symbol of our nation so proudly displayed here. This simple cloth and thread that in the distinguished form of stars and stripes, in red, white, and blue, it is the fabric of our nation that binds us together. We serve so that Old Glory may wave proudly from sea to shining sea, now and forevermore. As a citizen and now as a proud retired soldier, I promise, I declare, and I swear to you, I will never let these colors fall. I will never see these colors run. I will always remember, I will never forget my oath and obligation to this republic, to you, my fellow citizens, and to you who will carry the sword and the olive branch and defend our Commonwealth and our nation in the future. And although I have removed my headgear, cleared my weapon, and sheathed my saber, and grown a beard, I will never relinquish my love and my support for the formation, for this nation, and for our freedoms. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in this great event today. Long remember those we honor here today. Long prosper this land of the free and home of the brave. Long fly these colors. Long live the Republic. May God bless you. May God bless all who have served so that we may live free. And may God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Leo Club Secretary Colin Anderson and Treasurer Morgan Wiley will come to the podium and present with the aid of Tempest Leo Club Secretary honorary memberships and blankets.
This year, the Tempest Leo Club has decided to honor those who have lent a helping hand to our club by creating an honorary member list. Over the past year and a half, we have mourned with fellow community members over the loss of many who played a big role not only within our community, but also within our club. To begin this tradition, we are gifting our honorary members with a certification of membership and a fleece embroidered blanket. Mr. Wilbur Wolf III is one of our first of 3 honorary members who will be honored. Joining him in the class of 2021 inductees of honorary members are as follows: Mr. Doug Flotsball and Mr. Doug Weaver. We are grateful for the times that we spent with all of our honorary members. These times were precious and well worth remembering. In the future, we wish to follow in your footsteps and serve the world as best we can. We would like to take this time to thank all of our honorary members and their spouses for all they have contributed to the Tempest Leo Club. I'd like to now welcome Principal Jason Schober to the stand.
Before we return back to the world-class learning that happens here during our school day, I'd like to close out today's ceremony by sharing with you an excerpt from Chicken Soup for the Veteran Soul entitled Grandpa's Apple Pie. I can see the images vividly, as if I were standing right there gazing at the pictures on Grandpa's wall. Black and white photos with heavy black frames and weighty images. The brave smiles on the faces of the men in Grandpa's platoon could not hide the hardships of the war. I knew by heart the stories that went with the pictures. Grandpa had a gift for description, and when we begged him to tell and retell his war stories, we could see, hear, and even smell the front lines of battle. Just as vivid in my mind are the weekend visits to Grandpa, when my sister and I would sit with him around the kitchen table. The three of us would enjoy an apple pie after supper, savoring the sweet, smooth taste, and especially Grandpa's company. What I wouldn't have done to meet the two friends whom I held my Grandpa's heart and thought so securely. And then, unbelievably, I had my chance. During one of my visits to Grandpa, when I was 9 years old, I awoke early one morning and found Grandpa in the kitchen, sipping a cup of coffee. Two other coffee cups, almost empty, were sitting near him on the table, but no one occupied the chairs. "Why are there 3 cups here, Grandpa?" I asked. "Well, you see," Grandpa replied, "on Saturday mornings, my old buddies, my apple pie buddies, come over to drink coffee with me and talk about Army stuff." "Really, Grandpa?" I was thrilled. "Why didn't you tell me?" Those 2 heroes who had trudged through the war with Grandpa amid hand grenades and gunfire had been sitting here in the kitchen while I was upstairs asleep. "Can I meet them, Grandpa?" I begged. "Please." "All right," Grandpa agreed, "but there's one stipulation. You have to wake yourself at 4 a.m. to meet them. That's when they come, and I won't do it for you." What a deal. Of course, I would get up on my own. I'd stay up all night if I had to, but I was only a child after all, and as excited as I was the night before, as I awake, I felt by the time 4 a.m. rolled by, I was dead to the world. Every weekend visit brought the same end. I raced down the stairs, knowing I was too late, by the strength of the sun's rays peeping through the kitchen window to find Grandpa and 3 empty cups of coffee. Grandpa died, and I never made it in time for coffee, and I never met those 2 Army buddies. I'm glad, in a way. Perhaps my 9-year-old mind wouldn't have understood if I made it down at 4 a.m. and seen Grandpa's lone figure sipping from 3 cups of coffee. Too late out for young men who likely never made it home from the war. It probably wouldn't have made sense to me then. But it makes perfect sense to me now, as much as it did to Grandpa. He was, as ever, the crust of that special apple pie, holding together a friendship that had never died, and showing me the kind of love that lasts as long as memory and beyond. In closing, these citizen soldiers have sacrificed for their country, their families, but most importantly, they've laid down their lives for each other. The friendship that bound them was the steadfast fuel that drove them to meet any challenge together through the storm that tested their mettle. These bonds of friendship have transcended the battlefield and the march of time, for even as their gray selves begin to falter, these friendships forged in the brotherhood of strife will never fade into the sunset of life. I want to thank the Tempest Club members and advisor for all the time and planning that went into this morning's event. Thank you to the individual behind the scenes, moving the furniture and equipment to get us ready. And above all else, I want to sincerely thank each and every veteran, whether with us today or not, for the willingness to selflessly put their country and our freedoms first. Have a great rest of your Veterans Day. Thank you.